Okay. Very good evening to all of you. I hope I'm visible and we are doing a better job today. Uh, so first and foremost, we'll talk about the topic under discussion. There's been a lot of talk about green energy in the newspapers. And if you look at the articles in the Economic Times, as also the articles which have appeared from time to time in the Indian Express, and most of my lecture today is based on these articles. The articles which I'm specifically talking about is an article which has appeared in Economic Times on the 1st of July, on the 4th of July, Indian Express on the 31st of May, and maybe a few which came out in February. The crux of the matter is that we are on a voyage of or journey of renewable energy. Now, what is renewable energy? I hope the board is clear to you and you can see the black. Okay. So renewable energy is the energy that we get from nature. As such, it is inexhaustive and therefore, hence the term renewable, so that it denotes that it is an unending source of energy. What are the energies which come under this? First and foremost, of course, is the sun, you have the wind, and then you have other materials like you have water, which is considered to be, again, a very renewable source of energy. Nuclear energy is not as such a renewable source of energy, but it is counted in the category of non-fossil fuel. So this brings us back to COP21. COP21 in 2015-16, wherein in November we committed to reduce carbon emissions by 40.1% by 2030. What did we say? That we want to have, out of the installed capacity, out of the installed electricity capacity that we have, installed power generation is a better word. Out of the installed power generation, 40% would come from non-fossil fuels. It would come from non-fossil fuels. So what did we do? We said way back in 2015-16, at the time of the Paris Agreement, or what is called COP21, India committed that out of its entire installed capacity for power generation, 40% of it will come from non-fossil fuels, meaning basically coal and natural gas. We have a very small percentage of energy which is produced from natural gas. More of it is coal dependent. I will take you through what is the percentage of the energies that we use in the various sectors. So the most important thing here is that we achieved the goal of 40.1% of the installed capacity that we have for power generation from non-fossil sources right now in November 2021. So in November 2021, in November 2021, India achieved its goal, or what is called the National Determined Goals. The National Determined Goals at the Paris Convention, where we said that the 40% of installed electricity capacity will come from non-fossil fuels. ये गोल हमें अचीव करना था 2030 में, but we have already completed and accomplished this goal in November 21, much in advance. Now, what is the goal of India in COP26? In COP26, which happened in Glasgow again in November in 2021, the Prime Minister has committed that India will now have a 500 gigawatt of power capacity from non-fossil sources, by 2030. हमारे प्राइम मिनिस्टर का कहना है कि by 2030 India will have an installed capacity of 500 gigawatts of electricity production from non-fossil sources. Now, this is the goal which India has to achieve. And if you look at the article from Economic Times on the 4th of July, it clearly says that India needs $223 billion. $223 billion to achieve its green goal. That's how the article is also there. So it's an ambitious goal of achieving 500 gigawatts, considering that right now we are at 157. I'll just give you the figures. But it has been clearly spelled out that we have to achieve 500 gigawatts of installed electricity capacity by 2030. And these $223 billion have to be raised from the market. And because we've achieved the goal of 40% already in 21, something which we should have achieved in 2030, it becomes an achievement for the government and therefore very likely that it will be a part of your exam. Now, when we talk of the renewable energy sources, let us now take you through what are the various sources of energy which is there in India. Now, agar aap renewable energy ka pehle breakup le lijiye, or is it better that I give you a breakup of what we have in terms of the energy consumption patterns in India? So in renewable energy capacity, we are said to be at 157.32, which is 40.1% out of a total of 392.01 gigawatt GW. आप ये सब gigawatt में पढ़िएगा, ये this is also GW, ये gigawatt है. Okay, तो ये हमारी आरी जो है वो 157.32 gigawatt है out of 392.01 gigawatt, which comes to 40.1%. This India achieved it November 21. अब आरी के कौन कौन से सोर्सेज हैं? आरी के सोर्सेज में फर्स्ट इज सोलर. सोलर एनर्जी आपकी क्या है? 48.55 गीगावाट है. 48.55 गीगावाट आपकी सोलर है. विंड आपकी 40.03 गीगावाट है. स्मॉल हाइड्रो पावर is 4.83 gigawatts, and large hydro power is 46.51 gigawatt. If you recall, when I had spoken about how these large hydroelectric projects are not so sustainable for the environment, I had also told you this at that point of time, that this is what we are going to use to achieve our goal of non-fossil fuels. And as you can see, that out of the entire 157, we have a good solar capacity, but equivalent to that are the large hydropower projects. Now, along with this, the nuclear energy is put at 6.78 gigawatts. So this is what we have achieved as of now. India's renewable energy sources stand at 165 gigawatt. जब ये आर्टिकल लिखा गया है और ये आर्टिकल अभी लिखा गया है 1 जुलाई को, तो हमारी कैपेसिटी 165 गीगावाट हो गई है. जब ये पहले लिखा गया था आर्टिकल, जबकि ये अचीव किया हमने, तब उस समय हमारी कैपेसिटी 157.32 गीगावाट थी. एंड यू विल कम टू नो इन द लेक्चर व्हाई इट हैज रीच्ड नाउ द 165 gigawatt. So just have these breakups with you. This is how we have achieved our goal of 40.1%. Put very simply, SDG goal 7 to provide clean energy to all comes up with India's national determined goal of achieving installed electricity power capacity of 40.1% by 2030, which India has achieved in November 2021. If you look at the breakup, the biggest contributor is solar power, which is with 48.55 gigawatt. Then comes wind with 40.03 gigawatt, small hydropowers 4.83, large hydropowers 46.51, and nuclear energy is put at 6.78. और आप इसमें एक और ऐड कीजिए, which is called the biopower. Biopower मतलब जो biomass होता है, mostly what we have what is called the गोबर gas or the methane. वो जो होता है वो biopower है, and इसकी हमारी पास कैपेसिटी हो चुकी है 10.62 gigawatt. So we have RE. अगर आप इसे RE मानिए, so this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4, this is 5, and this is 6. We are taking nuclear energy only because it is non-fossil. Otherwise, we do not take it in the category of renewable energies. But up to biopower, it is very much that. I hope so far, we are clear, because this is very simple. Now, out of the states that we have, the states which are involved in a big manner with renewable energy, first, of course, we cannot go into orders, because if you also Google and find out, you're going to see that there is a lot of confusion of who's first. This is not surprising, because now the tradition is that I'm first and I'm the biggest and I'm the largest. But besides the point, we have 3 states who are doing extremely well in the area of renewable energy. One, of course, is Rajasthan, the other is Gujarat, and third is Karnataka. All of them have huge installed capacities of solar energy and also of wind energy. Particularly Gujarat has come up with these huge wind power projects. Now, if we look at what is the first solar park which came up in India, it is called the 3 states are Rajasthan, we have Gujarat, and we have Karnataka. आप जितनी बार गूगल करेंगे आपको कौन फर्स्ट है वो अलग अलग जवाब मिलेगा. But it is quite safe to say that if we combine all the sources of renewable energy, then maybe Gujarat will come first. But if we look only at solar energy, then Rajasthan will be there. तो पहला solar park हमारा कहाँ था? The first solar park was at Charanka village. At Charanka village in Gujarat. All right. Now, India has a few distinctions. पहला क्या है? Third largest country in terms of electricity consumption. So it's the third largest country in terms of electricity consumption. The second one is the third largest country with RE sources, with renewable energy sources. The other is that it is the 4th largest country with wind power capacity. तो भारत देश तीसरा सबसे ज्यादा इलेक्ट्रिसिटी कंज्यूम करने वाला देश है, तीसरा ऐसा देश है जिसके पास बहुत ज्यादा रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी की कैपेसिटी है. In terms of renewable energy capacity, it stands at number 3, and it stands number 4 in terms of wind power capacity. These are some of the goals. Now, by 2030, we are saying that we are at 165 right now, okay? But we have to move up to 500 gigawatt. That is now our SDG goal, or the national determined goal out of the SDG goals, which is a commitment of each country. And this is the result of COP26. So the journey so far for all of you, I hope I'm going slow enough today. The journey so far for all of you is that India had committed at COP21 in Paris that we are going to be able to install non-fossil capacity of electricity generation by 2030, which would be amounting to 40.1%. We achieved this goal from much earlier in 2021, but in COP26, our goals were elevated, and now we are going to achieve 500 gigawatt of installed capacity of electricity from non-renewable sources. If you look at the statistics of India, India stands third in terms of energy consumption, stands third in terms of capacity for renewable energy, stands fourth in terms of wind power generation. So far, so good. Now we go to the other parts. Now, what are the challenges that India is likely to meet, or India is likely to face in this 500 gigawatt journey? So first, of course, is finance. And like I told you, India is going to need $223 billion in the next 7 years to complete its journey of, or 8 years to complete its journey of 500 gigawatt. First is finance. 2, by way of the technology which is used, almost all renewable energy sources require huge land acquisitions. और ये जो ड्रॉबैक्स है रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी की, आपको किसी भी तरीके से आए, वो आपके ड्रॉबैक्स हर रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी के लिए वो ही रहेंगे. So the first and foremost challenge that we need to face is to bring in these $223 billion for India. The second is land acquisition. Now, being a country with this ginormous, with this kind of population that we have, land acquisition is a very tricky issue for the country. And you must understand that for renewable energy sources, you just can't go and install the energy source anywhere. You have to be at the source. तो अगर आपको डेजर्ट जाना है सोलर एनर्जी को कैप्चर करने, तो आप उसे कहीं और नहीं ले जा सकते. इसी तरह विंड एनर्जी आपको ज्यादा करके समुद्री तटों पे मिलेगी. अगर आप वहां नहीं है तो आप विंड एनर्जी का प्लांट नहीं लगा सकते. So these are some of the challenges which renewable energy sources face. So for that, you need good deal of land. What happens even if for a solar panel to be installed, they have to be mounted in an area. Now, this mounting requires huge acres of land. Nothing less than 300 to 400 acres of land में आप कोई solar panel install नहीं कर सकते. उनको भूल जाइए जो आप rooftop पे करते. Those are for your family consumption. But when we are looking at replacing coal with solar power generation, we have to look at this massive land acquisition which needs to take place. And for a country like India, it becomes a little tedious. The third point is that we need the support. Now, this commitment of 500 gigawatt of non-fossil fuels being done by the center. But all the work which needs to be done is to be done by the state government. So the state governments need to be committed to RE, that means renewable energy. Now, when you look at this part of the issue, you will see that Karnataka, Gujarat, and Rajasthan are committed to this. But other than these states, we do not find the same kind of inputs from the state governments. Kerala, of course, is another state which is coming up in a big way, but Kerala is a very small state to make a sizable difference to our goals of 500 gigawatt. But we will, as we go further, we will understand that that's how it is coming up. Then we have to have an ecosystem for innovation, an ecosystem for innovation. So we should have an environment for going in for renewable energy. पर हम ऐसा नहीं करते, हम तो हर समय लाइट पंखा जितना होता सारा, we ensure that our houses are fully lit. We will put on every fan and every bulb that we have in the house. Why do we do that? Because we always feel somebody else is paying for it. We never think that our future generations will have to pay for it. So if we go in for that kind of an environment where people are ready to innovate and replace the traditional systems of electricity power generation, then we can look at RE in a big way and achieve our goals. The other is the technology part, which is involved in renewable energies. Now, what is the technology? अगर आप मान लीजिए कि कहीं से भी विंड एनर्जी प्रोड्यूस करते हैं, मान लीजिए समुद्र के किनारे पे आपने बहुत सारे विंड टर्बाइंस लगा दिए और आप एनर्जी वहां प्रोड्यूस कर रहे हैं. Now you cannot supply the energy directly from the turbines to the factory or home which is required. For every electricity generation, it should be very clear that the production from the site of production, the power needs to be carried to where? It needs to be carried to the grid. So we need technology that from the area, the power needs to reach the grid, and from the grid, it will be supplied. Now, this distance between the source and the grid, in case of renewable energy, is always a bit more than it is in the case of a normal fossil fuel, like, for example, coal, because that's the way the country has been designed all over. It's now a new way of thinking that we are going into grids. Not that it is not achievable, it is. After all, we've reached 165 gigawatt. We will reach more also. But as of now, to tell you, there is a big gap from area of production to area of supply, which is a technological challenge and which we need to get over with in times to come. Then the entry into hardcore carbon sector. Hardcore carbon sector is a little tough journey, and therefore the support of the government is essentially required for people who are now in the green sector and wanting to supply power to the other sectors. So these are some of the challenges which we are going to face in case of any renewable energy source. One is finance, second is land acquisition, third, support of the state government. Then we need an ecosystem for innovation. We need a technology which will bridge the gap from the source to the grid. And at the same time, we need to give some support so that these people can enter into the hardcore sector of carbon-based power generation. Now, what are some of the schemes that have come up to give us a boost for renewable energy sectors in the country? Now, these schemes have come over a period of time. I'm going to just list the schemes for you because it will be very difficult for me to go into details of each of them. In case you want the details, I have the details. You can just put in the in your dedicated group that you want the details. We can take it as a part of the class also. But as of now, I'm just listing it for you. आप लोग देख लीजिए. One is your PM Kusum Yojana. Then you have the production linked incentive scheme. Production linked incentive scheme. You have the solar panel scheme. You have the solar panel scheme. You have the rooftop solar program, which is now in its second phase. Rooftop solar. इसमें से आपको एक भी कोई स्कीम नहीं आने वाली है. They're just going to ask you as a part of your action plan what is the way forward. And as soon as they ask you for the way forward, you're going to list it. And that's all. You just need to list it. When I asked you the question about the 12 problems that we face, you just needed to list it with some data. That was all. It didn't require much. So आपके पास ऊपर के लिए सिर्फ वही 24 वर्ड होने चाहिए थे और नीचे आपके एक्शन प्लान में वो सारी बातें आ जानी चाहिए थी. That is how you will distribute and make your answers to 250 limit. None of these are going to come for you as exclusive schemes. They've already been there. What is going to come to you as a question, we are going to take it up later. But this is going to be a part of your action plan. Be very clear about it. Then your solar panel scheme, your rooftop solar program, which is now in its phase 2. Then there is the central public sector undertaking. Central public sector undertaking, or what is called the CPSU. Then you have hydrogen mission. And then you have what is called the International Solar Alliance. International Solar Alliance, which as on date has 101 members. The 101st member is now the United States of America. All right. Then you have, ab ye ho gaya, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You have what is called the Atal Jyoti योजना. ये स्ट्रीट लाइट्स के लिए वहां पे जहां पे कि 50% से कम हाउस होल्ड के पास इलेक्ट्रिसिटी है. So this is for the street lights, this Atal Jyoti Yojana. This came back in 2016. So it's just a pointer in the direction, nothing more. Then we have what is called the One Sun, One World, One Government wala, aapka also work. That's another one. All of these are schemes for renewable energy. Then we have what is called the National Wind Power. National Wind and Solar Hybrid. Solar Hybrid. Solar Hybrid policy, which has come out in 2018. Then you have the National Offshore Wind Energy, which is along India's 7,600 kilometers coastline. In the EEZ, which is your exclusive economic zone. I think this is about enough for an action plan. You wouldn't get more words to write also. So, I mean, this far, so good. All right. Now we go to what are the various installed capacities in India for electricity. अगर आप कोई भी diagram देखेंगे तो ऐसा देखेंगे. इसमें 61% कहाँ से आ रहा है? कोल से आ रहा है. 61% of all the energy which is produced, electricity which is produced in the country is from coal. Then you have 13% of RE, which is your renewable energy, RE. Okay. Then you have what is called the 15% of hydroelectricity है. ये 15% है आपका. ठीक है. उसके बाद आपका इधर पर नेचुरल गैस है. नेचुरल गैस आपका कितना है? 9% है. दिस इज योर नेचुरल गैस. और ये हमारा न्यूक्लियर का है, which is like 6.7%, and these are the others. Okay, so 61% is coal, 13% is RE, which is your renewable energy, 15% is hydro, 9% is natural gas, 6.7% is your nuclear energy. This is the power distribution, the sources of electricity in India in terms of installed capacity. In terms of installed capacity. So from here, we want to go and move forward. Again, an article which has come out in Economic Times talks about a floating solar panel which has come up in the state of Andhra Pradesh, in the district of Telangana. And now we are going to do this in detail. For me, this is a major question. So we go one by one. So India's largest floating solar panel has come up and has become operational in the Ramagundam, Telangana. Telangana in the Pedapalli district. In the Pedapalli district. I hope I can be heard. This is India's largest solar plant which has become operational at Ramagundam in Telangana, Pedapalli district. This 100 megawatt floating solar power photovoltaic project has been commissioned by NTPC. So what is it? It is a 100 megawatt. It's a 100 megawatt floating solar panel photovoltaic, which has been commissioned by NTPC. And the NTPC in turn has got it done by BHEL. This 100 megawatt floating solar power, you have to use the word photovoltaic project, which has been done by NTPC. The cost of the project is 423 crores. It has been commissioned on the 1st of July, and it helps to, now, it's a 423 crore project. What have we achieved from the project? After implementation, we will be avoiding coal consumption. We will be avoiding coal consumption of 165,000, meaning 165,000 tons of coal per annum or per year. इस 423 करोड़ के प्रोजेक्ट को implement करने के बाद we will be able to control or reduce the consumption of coal by 165,000 tons of coal per year. This will save us carbon emissions to the tune of 210,000 tons per year. तो हमने एक फ्लोटिंग सोलर पैनल अभी कमीशन किया है रामागुंडी में इन आंध्र प्रदेश, जहां पर कि we are producing 100 megawatts of power. इस 100 megawatt of power से हम 165,000 tons of coal का usage reduce करेंगे, and in terms of CO2 emissions, we are going to be reducing it by 210,000 tons per year. Now with its commissioning, after the commissioning of this 100 megawatt project, the capacity of South India, the whole of the South of India, the capacity of South India, मतलब इसमें सारे states आ रहे हैं, has increased to 217 megawatts. With the commissioning of this floating solar plant, we are now able to have an enhanced solar capacity of 270 megawatts. This is spread over an area of 500 acres. तो क्योंकि ये पानी में है तो ये 500 एकड़ आपका पानी का है. So this spread over an area of 500 acres and is based on a model of what is called the EPC. इसको बताने का आपको इसकी जरूरत पड़ी है क्योंकि इसके बाद एक और फ्लोटिंग सोलर पैनल कमीशन हुआ है केरला में, जिसको टाटा पावर ने किया है, बट द मोडस ऑपरेंडी इज अ लिटिल डिफरेंट. दैट इज व्हाई आई हैव मेंशन्ड इट टू यू. तो इट इज बीइंग इम्प्लीमेंटेड एज व्हाट इज कॉल्ड द ईपीसी मॉडल बाय भेल. अब भेल इसमें ईपीसी मॉडल में क्या कर रहा है, जो आपका इंजीनियरिंग पार्ट है इस प्रोजेक्ट का, प्लस आपका जो प्रोक्योरमेंट पार्ट है, प्लस आपका जो कंस्ट्रक्शन पार्ट है, तीनों काम भेल ने किया है फॉर एनटीपीसी. सो it is based on the EPC model and it has been constructed by BHEL. The contract has been given by the National Thermal Power Corporation. So 165,000 tons of coal per year is saved. 2,10,000 हम कार्बन एमिशन रिड्यूस कर रहे हैं. पूरी साउथ इंडिया की सोलर कैपेसिटी 217 हो गई है. ये पानी में सोलर पैनल रहता है तो 500 एकड़ पानी का वी हैव converted into a solar park. Now, EPC BHEL is your engineering plus procurement plus construction. तीनों चीजें BHEL ने करी है. उसने सारे सोर्सेस का जो ये सोलर पैनल है उसका इंजीनियरिंग पार्ट भी किया है, प्रोक्योरमेंट पार्ट भी किया है और कंस्ट्रक्शन पार्ट भी BHEL ने ही किया है. Now, because it is in water, it does not require land. Because the entire project has been implemented on water, it does not require land. So there is no land requirement. There has been no land requirement for the project. So it does away with the limitation of a traditional renewable energy project, which usually requires huge procurements of land. What happens then is that because the solar panels are beneath the water, the solar panels are placed not beneath the water, the solar panels are placed on water. They are placed on water. The water helps to keep the panels cool. इससे जो बहुत ज्यादा पैनल सोलर पैनल बहुत धूप निकलती है तो बहुत जल्दी गर्म हो जाता है. बट इस केस में ये प्रॉब्लम नहीं है. Why? Because you have an underlying layer of water which keeps the panels cool. This helps to reduce water. It also helps us to reduce water evaporation. It helps us to reduce water evaporation and save water. अब save water किस चीज के लिए है? Save water for hydropower. ये जो प्लांट आपने देखा कि ये 500 एकड़ के रेजर्वॉयर में बनाया गया है, दिस इज एक्चुअली द रेजर्वॉयर ऑफ अ रिवर. यहाँ पे ऑलरेडी एक हाइड्रो पावर प्रोजेक्ट है, उसके रेजर्वॉयर में इसको बनाया जा रहा है. सो व्हाट इज बीइंग डन इज दैट out of a renewable energy source, we are further enhancing our energy capacities by installing this 423 crore solar floating panels in the reservoir of the project. Now, from here, the water, when the solar panels are placed on the water, it helps to control evaporation of water. And because the evaporation of water is reduced, hydropower can be generated from the reservoir itself. So this is another advantage of this of the project. Now at Ramagunda, which this is the what we've talked about is, these floaters are placed on. The floaters are made of, they are made of what is called the HDPM. What is the HDPM? It is your high density. अब ये इसके फीचर्स हैं. एक हाई डेंसिटी पॉलीएथेनिल मटेरियल यूज किया गया है इसको बनाने के लिए, और ये फ्लोट करता है इररिस्पेक्टिव ऑफ whatever be the status of the water. तो जनरली फ्लोटिंग सोलर पैनल्स वहां लगाए जाते जहां बहुत काम सी रहती है या बहुत काम वाटर रहता है, वाटर बॉडी काम रहती है. बट अभी जो टाटा पावर ने केरला में लगाया है वो बैक वाटर्स में लगाया है. एंड यू नो व्हाट आर द बैक वाटर्स? बैक वाटर्स आर वेयर the water, your clean water or the unsalted fresh water is meeting the sea. तो उन backwaters में टाटा पावर ने अभी ये इंस्टॉल किया है. So they have been able to use technology very efficiently. We'll talk about that a little later. Now these keep floating. ये high density polyethanol material से जो बने हुए हैं सोलर पैनल्स, ये फ्लोट करते रहते हैं और इसमें 40 ब्लॉक्स हैं. There are 40 such blocks of solar panels which generate about 2.5 megawatt of electricity each. So there are 40 blocks of 2.5 megawatt each, and each of the blocks has 11,200 solar modules. Each of the block has 11,200 solar modules. So the inverter, the transformer, all of it is in water. The inverter, the transformer, आपका जो SCDA होता है, which is your supervisory control and data acquisition, are all on floating platforms. They are all on floating platforms. So if we look at the advantages, which is what is going to come to you, is that one, it reduces evaporation, which I've told you why, because it covers the water at all times, it floats over it. So it controls evaporation to the tune of 32.5 lakh cubic meter of water. 32.5 lakh cubic meter of water. I repeat, it controls evaporation to the tune of 32.5 lakh cubic meters of water. The whole question of land acquisition is saved, क्योंकि land की इसमें कोई जरूरत ही नहीं है. Land acquisition is saved. All right. Then water underneath, the water underneath keeps the panels cool, This increases their efficiency and helps in steady power generation. It maintains the efficiency of the solar panel and it helps to maintain a steady power generation. Of course, the fact that we save 1,65,000 tons of coal per annum, okay? And we also control emissions to the tune of 210,000 CO2 emissions per year annually. These are the advantages. Now this other plant which I'm talking of is a 92 megawatt. This is the second floating solar panel park which has come up. Now there is some discrepancy between the two. Each claims that it is the largest of the two, so I really don't know which of them is the largest. But when we come to the Tata Power commissioned floating solar panel, you'll find that it has a megawatt capacity of 101.6, जबकि इस केस में इन्होंने 100 कहा है. तो अगर किसी चीज को लेके कंफ्यूजन होता है तो वो उस तरह के कंफ्यूजन से कभी क्वेश्चंस बनते नहीं है. So most probably they just ask you what are solar floating panels. I think that'll be the question, and what are the advantages of it. I have a very strong feeling that for renewable sector, there is going to be a question either on green hydrogen, or there's going to be a question on these floating solar panels. So NTPC is also doing this 92 megawatt plant at what is called the Kayakulam in Kerala. जो टाटा पावर है वो भी यही आया है, बट एनटीपीसी के अब मैं फ्यूचर एंडेवर्स आपको बता रही हूँ, जस्ट इन केस दे आस्क यू व्हाट इज द वे फॉरवर्ड. देन 92 मेगावाट का प्लांट वो कायाकुलम केरला में एक और बना रहा है, एंड देन दे आर टॉकिंग ऑफ अ 250 megawatt floating panel in what is called the Simhadri in Andhra Pradesh. So Andhra Pradesh or Kerala mein NTPC is proposing to put up these floating solar panels. All right. Now the other power plants that I was talking of is the Tata Power. Now Tata Power का जो solar project है वो है काया, जस्ट लाइक एनटीपीसी का फ्यूचर प्रोजेक्ट है, ये टाटा पावर ने 1 जुलाई को कमीशन किया है. इट इज कॉल्ड द कायाकुलम. इट्स कॉल्ड द कायाकुलम प्रोजेक्ट, एंड इट्स ओवर 350 acres, which is going to give us an installed capacity of 101.6 megawatts in its peak time. Again, the same things are there. It's a floating power solar photovoltaic through power. Now, this was the difference. Through the power purchase agreement in the first of its kind. So it is based on a PPA model. आपके उसमें क्या था? उसमें आपका था engineering, construction, and installation. Everything was done by BHEL for NTPC. So NTPC had sublet the entire contract and they had done the whole thing. In case of the Kayakulam project, which is now installed capacity of 101.6 by Tata Power, the model is one of the what is called the power purchase agreement and is the first of its kind in India. Now I want to talk about a little about the hydrogen. Now hydrogen always is a very simple gas which is found in some amount in the atmosphere. You can find out the percentages. It's a gas which does not usually occur on its own because it's always in combination with other gases. So it's very easy for hydrogen to combine with carbon dioxide, for it to combine with oxygen. When it combines with oxygen, it can become combustible. And when it becomes combustible, it can be used as a source of power. And it can be used as a source of power in engines and drive our vehicles and our buses. And that is the whole concept behind what is called the green energy, which is a kind of a fuel which is being used as a futuristic technology to control your carbon emissions. Now, with this in mind, let us go away a little bit forward. It's not like hydrogen is not being used as a fuel in our industries as of now. Hydrogen is being used in the industries, but whenever the hydrogen that is being used in our industries is used in the production process releases as a fuel, yes, it has no carbon emissions. But in the production process of hydrogen, carbon dioxide emissions do take place. And if carbon emissions are happening, it means that the technology is not so green. So the whole concept of green hydrogen is to evolve a technology to produce hydrogen so that there are zero carbon emissions. Now, there are various kinds of hydrogen which are there. with the various kinds of here, with the, which are there is that one is your green hydrogen. अब green hydrogen आपकी क्या होती है? Hydrogen which is, जो मैंने अभी आपको बताया, hydrogen which is produced, hydrogen which is produced without the generation process, without the generation process itself emitting greenhouse gases. Gases is called green hydrogen. I repeat, hydrogen which is produced without the generation process, मतलब जिस प्रक्रिया से हम हाइड्रोजन को प्रोड्यूस कर रहे हैं, उस प्रक्रिया में किसी भी प्रकार का ग्रीन हाउस गैस का एमिशन अगर नहीं होता है, तो उसी हाइड्रोजन को हम ग्रीन हाइड्रोजन कहते हैं. The hydrogen which is produced without the generation process itself emitting greenhouse gases is called green hydrogen. Now, H2, hydrogen which is H2, I'll write it here, in whose generation oxides of carbon are produced and released to the atmosphere is called a gray hydrogen. So there is a category of hydrogen which is called gray hydrogen. तो रिफाइनरीज में आप क्या देखते हैं कि जब हाइड्रोजन को प्रोड्यूस किया जा रहा है तो उसके संग कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड के एमिशंस प्रोड्यूस हो रहे हैं. अगर इस तरह से प्रोडक्शन प्रोसेस में आप CO2 रिलीज कर देते हैं एटमॉस्फेयर को, जैसा रिफाइनरीज में होता है, तो इस टाइप के हाइड्रोजन को हम ग्रे हाइड्रोजन कहते हैं. कभी कभी जब हम हाइड्रोजन प्रोड्यूस करते हैं तो जो भी कार्बन एमिट हो रहा है उसको हम किसी भी प्रकार से स्टोर कर लेते हैं. अगर यही ग्रे हाइड्रोजन का जो CO2 जनरेशन है उसको हम कैप्चर करके स्टोर कर लें, अगर हम इसको कैप्चर करके स्टोर कर लेते हैं तो हम इसको H2 को क्या कहते हैं? हम इसको ब्लू हाइड्रोजन कहते हैं. इसको हम क्या कहते हैं? ब्लू हाइड्रोजन. तो एक हो गया ग्रीन हाइड्रोजन, एक हो गया ग्रे हाइड्रोजन, एक हो गया आपका ब्लू हाइड्रोजन. ब्लू हाइड्रोजन वही ग्रे हाइड्रोजन जो कि कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड प्रोड्यूस कर रहा है, उसको अगर हमने कैप्चर करके और स्टोर कर दिया, मतलब we are able to take it out from the atmosphere before it reaches and settles in the atmosphere. We are able to extract it and store it. Then the hydrogen which is produced is called the blue hydrogen. Now, when methane is broken, I think methane is CH4. When methane is broken by heat, of course, into hydrogen and carbon, when it is broken into hydrogen and carbon, then the solid which is resulted, hydrogen and carbon, तो जो इसका कार्बन पोर्शन है, अगर हम उसको रिट्रीव कर लेते हैं, अगर हम उसको रिट्रीव कर लेते हैं, then the resultant we retrieve, so the carbon has been taken out. Whenever we pass methane gas through heat and it breaks up into hydrogen and carbon dioxide, the carbon part of it is retrieved and solidified. Such a hydrogen is called a turquoise hydrogen. I found it to be very interesting and I'm sharing with you. This is a question. The green hydrogen will of course come as a question for your mains, at least I think so. But the various kinds of hydrogen can be a part of your prelims. And this is very much in the newspapers. So you can, everybody's talking about green hydrogen as though ki green hydrogen mein koi cheez hai hi nahi involved. Now that is not true. We'll go one by one again. Hydrogen as a gas in itself is odorless. It combines with other oxides like oxygen, combines with carbon dioxide. When it combines with oxygen, of course, the resulting oxidation process produces energy which can be converted into running an engine or producing power and steam, which helps in the combustion vehicle. And so it can be used as a fuel for our futuristic technologies in running what is called your green vehicles. Now, green hydrogen is the one when hydrogen is being produced, always remember that carbon dioxide or carbon is released to the atmosphere. In case of green hydrogen, the production of hydrogen is such that the carbon dioxide, which is to be released to the atmosphere, is not allowed to do so, but is stored. And therefore, what happens is the production process itself becomes clean and green. So when there is zero carbon emissions during production of hydrogen, such hydrogen produced is green hydrogen. Whenever hydrogen is produced in the refineries, it comes out with carbon emissions, and this is called the gray hydrogen. अगर हम इसी ग्रे हाइड्रोजन के कार्बन को रिट्रीव कर लेते हैं और स्टोर कर देते हैं, तो उसको हम ब्लू हाइड्रोजन कहते हैं. जब भी हम मीथेन से हाइड्रोजन प्रोड्यूस करते हैं और हीट द्वारा मीथेन को ब्रेकअप करते हैं और कार्बन और हाइड्रोजन सेपरेट होता है, तो इस कार्बन को हम सॉलिडिफाई कर देते हैं और इस हाइड्रोजन को हम टर्कोइज हाइड्रोजन कहते हैं. So far so good. People are with me. Now, all this talk about the green hydrogen, which all the ministers are talking about, and the Ministry of Power and Renewable Energy, as it is called, is saying that this is the futuristic technology and that India's petrol prices will fall to 30 per liter in the next 5 years, as is the claim. They are talking of replacing your fossil fuel, which is your petrol, by green hydrogen. Now, it is not as simple as it sounds. The technology is very, very capital intensive, and the government, in its fervor of achieving the goal of 500 gigawatts of non-fossil fuel, is going ahead and giving huge subsidies to every sector to build up on green hydrogen, as also the electric vehicles which are going to be powered by the green hydrogen. So there is a lot of subsidy which is being given up by the government. As the year moves, you will be getting a few updates on it. As and when that happens, I will give you those updates. So this is so far as hydrogen is concerned about the fuel. Now, what are the other renewable projects which are there? तो अभी मैंने आपको पहले बता दिया कि हमारे गोल्स क्या है, हमारी स्कीम्स क्या है. अभी स्कीम में मैं और रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी के सोर्सेज आपको थोड़े से जोड़ के बताती हूँ. एंड देन वी हैव टॉक्ड अबाउट दिस फ्लोटिंग सोलर पैनल एंड वी टॉक्ड अबाउट हाइड्रोजन. The other renewables include biomass. So what are the other schemes? The other schemes are for promotion of biomass in sugar mills and other industries, which is also called the biogas power. बायोगैस पावर की क्या खासियत होती है? आप इसको लोकली यूज कर सकते हैं. इसको आपको ग्रिड तक नहीं ले जाना है फॉर मैस कंजम्पशन और फॉर मैस डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन. ग्रिड से तो आप डिस्ट्रीब्यूट ही करते हैं, which is then consumed by the people at large. So for biomass, this is a localized way of giving power to the people or for generating power. Then you have what is called the new national biogas and organic manure program. For all of this, the renewable energy requires one. मैंने बायोगैस को आपको अभी बहुत थोड़ा सा इसलिए पढ़ाया बिकॉज वी आर गोइंग टू डील विथ इट इन डिटेल tomorrow or whenever I have my next class. But it's not very big, but we need to tell you so that you're prepared for it. So what is this? Now we talk about in general, whenever we have a renewable energy plant coming up, what is it that we need? We need the identification of a location. We need an identification of a location. Then we need to be integrated to the main grid. ये मैं आपको प्रोसेस बता रही हूँ. जैसे आपके लिए विंड है तो आपको समुद्र का किनारा probably समुद्र का किनारा चाहिए. अगर आपको सन एनर्जी चाहिए तो it should be somewhere in the tropical area. तो भारत तो ट्रॉपिक्स में situated ही है. But like if you have a huge solar power panel which you can install in the desert, like in Rajasthan, you will can get a massive production from it. So we need identification of a location. We need its integration with the main grid, and then we need a distribution of power. ये प्रोसेस है. ये किसी भी रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी के पार्ट का हो सकता है. So you need first a location, then you need an integration with the main grid, and then you need a distribution of power. Then what do we need? We need more storage solutions. ये सबसे बड़ी प्रॉब्लम है रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी के साथ कि इनका जो स्टोरेज है वो एक्सट्रीमली एक्सपेंसिव है और ये टेक्नोलॉजी अभी मूव फॉरवर्ड नहीं कर पा रही है. एंड फॉर सम रीजन आर R&Ds आर आल्सो फेलिंग, probably because focus of attention is not on R&Ds. So this is an area where we really need to focus on as to how to store the available more storage solutions for the renewable energy, because that is the way forward for us also. Then the agriculture subsidy which we are giving on power, the agriculture subsidy that we are giving on power needs to be rethink. We need to rethink about it because it only leads to a wastage of the power which is being given to the farmers free of cost. Then we have to look at what is called the hydrogen fuel cells. Fuel cells, आपने देखा होगा कि इसकी एक क्राइसिस हो गई थी. Hydrogen fuel cells based vehicles and electric vehicles. The market today is for electric vehicles because they are saying that in the next, by 2030 or before 2030, all petrol-based cars are just going to disappear from the roads. So it might become easier for a company like, you have Starbucks. Now Starbucks acquires a very prominent space to open up its coffee shop. Generally, it is at a very important location. So what is it? What are they talking about? They're saying that in case this happens, what you need is that you should be able to in times to come, it will be very much easier for somebody like your Starbucks to operate in an electric vehicle and deliver the coffee to you in wherever you require rather than you coming over to this space, because as we move forward in the century, land is going to be the most expensive commodity which is going to be available for man. So people will not be able to hire rented spaces to run coffee shops. They would rather prefer to go and deliver it to your doorstep because that will become easier and cheaper once the electric vehicles come into vogue. I have just read that somewhere, so I just wanted to share that with you. Now, what are the advantages of your renewable energy? Cut across all the ones, whether it is solar, wind, water, whatever. So one is that they are sustainable. आप खुद भी इस्तेमाल करेंगे और अपने फ्यूचर जनरेशन के लिए भी छोड़ेंगे. They are cleaner, they are greener, and more sustainable. फिर ये एक ऐसी ग्रीन इंडस्ट्री है जो कि आने वाले टाइम में आपको बहुत ज्यादा एम्प्लॉयमेंट देगी. जिन आर्टिकल्स का जिक्र मैंने किया है इकोनॉमिक टाइम्स से, अगर वो आर्टिकल्स आप पढ़ेंगे तो आप उसमें एम्प्लॉयमेंट वाला सेक्टर भी देखेंगे. दे हैव कैटेगोरिकली स्टेटेड how many job opportunities has been created in this sector. Then it is, of course, a market assurance for it. Why is there a market assurance for it? Because it is the future. Market assurance तो है ही है, because in times to come fossil fuel तो रहेगा ही नहीं, बचेगा ही नहीं. So there is a market assurance for it. Then it is a non-exhaustive source. It's a non-exhaustive source of energy. But for countries like India, why does investing in renewable energy become a challenge? Reason being, not always does the sun shine, not always do you get the wind sources. Moreover, it is very capital intensive. And there are countries of the world who are engaged in renewable sources of energy. But because of these climatic factors and other factors beyond their control, like countries like Germany, countries like UK and Spain, quickly switch from renewable sources to a source which is called the natural gas. Now, natural gas for the agricultural based countries like India and others are using to produce a fertilizer which is called urea. अब यूरिया का जो प्रोडक्शन होता है वो जैसे ही नेचुरल गैस का कंजम्पशन इन सारी वेस्टर्न कंट्रीज में बढ़ता है, the cost of fertilizers gets a raise. Not only that, the food growth or the amount of food which is to be produced in the country takes a backseat. So the food crisis that we saw in Syria and in Libya as a result of these fossil fuels being consumed. जैसे सीरिया और लिबिया में क्यों हुआ था फूड क्राइसिस? क्योंकि ऑयल के प्राइसेस बहुत ज्यादा बढ़ गए थे. जैसे ही ऑयल के प्राइसेस बढ़ते हैं, ये सारी कंट्रीज नेचुरल गैस की तरफ शिफ्ट करते हैं. नेचुरल गैस की तरफ शिफ्ट होने के बाद हमारा फर्टिलाइजर का जो रिक्वायरमेंट होता है, मीन्स नॉट ओनली इंडिया but world over, all countries which engage in agriculture are generally developing countries. So they face a crisis in being able to fund the fertilizer. As a result of which, there are food famines, which is experienced by the smaller countries like Libya and Syria. Thankfully for India, natural gas is not so much used as a fossil fuel as it is used only in the case of fertilizers. But this is a drawback for renewable energy sources which are being used worldwide. So though the progressive developed world can switch from one source of energy to the other, India has to think in terms of how to substitute one for the other, because now it is wanting to go a big way to RE, which is your renewable energy source. I thought it was important that I mentioned this to you. जैसे एथेनॉल, अब जैसे ही ऑयल का प्राइस बढ़ता है तो ये लोग कहते हैं या तो नेचुरल गैस या एथेनॉल. Now ethanol has to be produced in the same agriculture field where food is grown. So for ethanol, as soon as the ethanol production comes up, there is a food crisis for the world to face. So we need to take a very balanced approach. It is not like, we need to just shift to renewable energy sources. We need to balance our energy sources because it needs to be kept in mind that at any point of time, if the developed world moves to natural gas or moves to ethanol, India will be facing a crisis in terms of its agriculture produce. This you should keep in mind. It is as a drawback. Now, the other important part for this is that there is a very high cost of installation. There is a very high cost of installation of RE. It's a new technology. It is capital intensive. We are still not sure how to store it. And when we look at the storage part of it, then we have to think of better technologies. But as of now, we don't have the solution. So there can be a waste of renewable energy also. Now I bring you to another aspect. I'll just do this in short. We can carry it forward because another teacher is waiting to take your class. Just to give you a little brief about the thing which has been innovated by the Ministry of Power and Renewable Energy is something which is called the Green Day Ahead Market. It's called the Green Day Ahead Market. अब अब आपका ग्रीन डे अहेड मार्केट क्या है? यस, मिनिस्ट्री ने एक ऐसा प्लेटफॉर्म अवेलेबल किया है for all the people engaged in the production and distribution of renewable energy, where renewable energy can be traded across a platform. And this platform is called the Green Day Ahead Market. In the Green Day Ahead Market, there is an Indian energy exchange. That is an actual physical exchange of energies takes place between the suppliers and those who are going to consume it. Now, this has come forward. It is very much being practiced in India. कुछ नहीं, आप सिंपली एक समझिए कि जैसे आपका नेशनल स्टॉक एक्सचेंज होता है, स्टॉक एक्सचेंज में आप स्टॉक्स को ट्रेड करते हैं, बट आप इस केस में स्टॉक्स को ट्रेड नहीं कर रहे, आप एनर्जी ट्रेड करते हैं। तो दो विंडोज बनाई गई हैं, एक आपकी जो है कंज्यूमेबल एनर्जी की बनाई गई है और एक आपकी रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी की बनाई गई है। दोनों विंडोज को आप अलग अलग टाइम पे बिड कर सकते हैं। बट अगर मान लीजिए कि आपको रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी का बिड नहीं मिलता किसी से, तो आप उसको कंज्यूमेबल वाले एनर्जी विंडो से भी बिड कर सकते हैं। द बिडिंग टाइम इज फॉर it will start in 24 hours. You have to supply it to your consumer, and it goes on for every hour till 7 hours. It is a cycle which is there, which is being established, and we will talk in great detail about it in our next class. Thank you so much for your time today. If you really want me to go into the details of the schemes, I will do that. But this in itself is very exhaustive. The schemes you can read from anywhere. Really, I don't feel that they are so important. You should just have a knowledge about it. We'll close the class today here. If there are any questions, please put them in the group. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you.